Hello everybody, my name is Richard Vigorelli and this is Vigorelli Institute, and I actually went on vacation. I know, weird. I almost never go on vacation. I blame Utah because it's just not part of the culture there. Vacation is seen as one, something rich people do, and two, a waste of time, money, and energy. Because you still have to come back and go to work, so what's the point of leaving work? By the way, the symbol of Utah is a beehive. Take from that what you will. Moving on. So, I went down to Savannah. I'm recording this on 420. And we went, drove down. It will be a week tomorrow. And I left at 3 a.m. Central Time. Well, a little bit after, maybe say 3:10. Got down there, give or take lunch. Did all my stuff. We'll get to that. I got back Tuesday afternoon, a little bit after 3. I was gone almost, pretty much 36 hours, almost to the minute. I even stopped off and did stuff. I'm impressed. Anyway, so I got down there and went to Tybee Island. By the way, loved it. So, I'm actually going to be giving that away to a friend. I just haven't had the chance yet. And I got to see the Atlantic for the very first time in my life. Dipped my ankles in it, walked through a couple of tide pools because tide was out. I was amazed at how hard the tidal sand was. It was actually kind of like concrete. I was impressed. Got to see a horseshoe crab. Unfortunately, it was on its back and missing its belly, so that's a problem. Bad day for him. So, a hotel was interesting, but I'm not going to worry about that. Now, that night, I went on a ghost tour, and that's what this video is about. Wow. Holy crap. They screwed up old Savannah real bad. Like, if you're going to screw up, just do this. What they decided to do was build most of the city on graves. It's as bad as you think it is. See, there's a reason why old Savannah, at the very least, is considered one of the most haunted cities in all of the United States. If it's not in the top 3, it's in the top 5. Okay? And then we're looking at statistical analysis, aggressiveness of haunts, and so forth. But downtown, Old Town, basically every single building there is haunted. Just pick your poison, okay? Because holy crap. Let's get into it. So, went on a ghost tour, and this guy tells me that Savannah is actually a necropolis because of that reason. Our very first stop and the first 3 spots on the tour were was the old central cemetery there. Okay, now the police station is just off of that, so that's interesting. And interestingly enough, every single old building in Savannah is still doing what it was meant to do, with a couple of rare exceptions. Okay? So, the cemetery itself, when Sherman and his troops came in and sacked the city, they stayed. They stayed the winter there. Okay? Because Sherman was told, stop. No. Bad. Okay? So he holds up in the city, and he camps his men in this cemetery, at least some of them. Okay? Well, because they were not good boys, they needed the room, they picked up the gravestones and chunked them into the river. And they pitched their tents and did whatever it was they were going to do. The stuff that they didn't get rid of, naturally, they desecrated. They shot at the stones. They carved things into them that were ridiculous. Yeah. So, It's haunted, which, by the way, I know a lot of people think this is the case. Most cemeteries are not haunted. It's actually quite rare. Unless you desecrate them. In which case, then things tend to go weird. So this one's desecrated. There's a few tombstones still left. And there's quite a few ghosts. I actually got a few on my phone camera. If you look real close, you can see faint distortions. Those are ghosts. Yeah. There's also a ghost there. That is the ghost of the first governor of Georgia. Okay. He was, taken out by a friend/enemy of his. Our guy, his name's Mr. Button. That's his first name. I know, weird. His buddy was a general. Now, Button wanted to be the general, and the general wanted to be the governor. And, well, that didn't work out, so here we are. Well, they got into a fight, and one thing led to another, and pow. It was actually right at the edge of the cemetery, so they just kind of dropped him off in his hole, and there it was. Now, through some storms and some other issues, his bones got misplaced. There were some issues. You're going to have to go ahead and read that story. I'm not doing the whole thing, but suffice it to say, people in the middle of the night, give or take 10 to 3 a.m., often see a guy poking around in the cemetery, and he's got himself a little personal shooty stick. So they call the police. Police are right there, and legally they have to respond, so they do, and they're just like, it's Button again, poking around. Right about this time of year, peak going from April into June, which I'm betting is when he died, is when sightings of him skyrocket. There's a minimum 22 sightings every single year of this guy, so I'm going to call that one confirmed. And these are by people that don't know the story, so yay. Also, Savannah historically has been a yellow fever city and a malaria city. Now, I got eaten alive by mosquitoes. It's been a week. If it ain't set in, it probably ain't gonna. Being said, if I turn yellow, you know. So, what happens is the yellow fever sets in. There's 5,000 people in any given summer that catch it, and they usually die. It's got a high mortality rate, so because of the large outbreaks, they would do mass graves in this cemetery. So thanks to Sherman and his boys and, screwing up the markers and whatnot, the city decided, well, we don't know where they are and we need room, so let's just pave over them and build buildings. We have a movie about this. Poltergeist. Give that a watch. They moved the stones, but not the graves. It gets better. So, during the desecration, the Union soldiers, they have above ground crypts, okay, which you actually go down about 9 feet, and, grandma, grandpa, whoever are laying there on slabs, and it's fine, okay? A lot of reasons for that. Go ahead and look that up as to why. So, the Union soldiers would actually pop these open, crawl in, and push grandma off the slab and light fires in there to stay warm because they were cold in the winter. Jerks. Anyway, that's not cool, so naturally you see stuff down there, okay? Yeah, lots of issues in that part of town. Now, we head away, and there is a middle school and the city education administration building right next to each other. Guess what these are buried on? Classic. Just check this out, bro. An Indian burial ground. Guys. Seriously. We're trying to have a society here. So, naturally, those places are frickin' haunted. We actually passed by, and one of the things of that haunt is lights will turn on. Now, it was spring break that night. We also passed by at about 7:15, 7:30 at night, Eastern time. So nobody's in the building, yet lights were on. Yeah, that place is haunted. Delightfully so. Now there's a church. It's got this steeple thing that's all screwy. Not even going to bother with that. Not really that important. So we went to the square. Now, this city has a bunch of squares in it, which squares on the East Coast, not that uncommon. Now, a town square is where you've got City Hall, and then it's ringed by a street, and then shops and other such administrative buildings will be there. Okay. We don't have them out west because the West basically grew up as waypoints to the coast. Okay. So coming out here, that was kind of neat for me. Now, on the old coast, they have, yes, the administrative town square, but they also have a bunch of little squares, especially where the blue bloods and the middle class were living, so they could, go out and do stuff with each other. They're basically parks. Okay? And Savannah's got a fair share of them. Okay? We actually met in one, had a fountain in it, and by the way, that place is haunted. Saw a couple. Every single house around that square was haunted. There's a hotel there. I walked in, and I was just kind of curious as to what it was because I was getting Wi-Fi, and I wanted to ask, hey, can I have the Wi-Fi password? So this really cute little blonde walks up, sits down, and says, hi, what can I do for you? Ask her for the password, and says, I'm sorry, only if you're staying here. Fair enough. So, as I'm talking to her, I look up, and this woman comes into view from around the corner, and she is wearing period clothing. I would say 1890s, 1900s, okay? It's got a little jewel choker right here, full blouse, nice bodice. She looked great. Hair was up. Could see through her, though, kind of a dead giveaway. And I knew the girl didn't see her or didn't care. So I asked her, hey, does anything ever move here on its own? You ever hear anything, see anything? And she goes, I haven't, but the other staff has. Okay, cool, thanks. So, asked to use the restroom and went on with my business. So, fast forward, back on the tour. So we go to this other one that's a few blocks away, and it's another one of these squares, and on the west. On the west side is where the courthouse was, and then where we were standing was where the old gallows were. Don't worry, this is important. See, what they used to do is they would try people 5 minutes. This is the colonial era, by the way. Take them over to the gallows, shunk, and then bury them about 10, 20 feet away. So the very first woman ever to get the drop treatment, her name was Alice Riley. Okay, she was 15 years old. Irish indentured servant. Okay, she was the first one because, well, she had Minecrafted her master. Her master was kind of a putz. He didn't bathe unless you bathed him, making unreasonable demands, etc. It took her 2.5 months to finally go like, that's it, I'm done. I'm taking him out. Her contract was for 7.5 years, BT dubs. So she talked to a friend of hers who's also a servant. They took out the master, called it called it a day. Well, technically speaking, in Savannah at the time, murder wasn't illegal. Other things were, but, you know, the judge was going like, all right, we got to fix this. Because Alice was a woman. She had red hair. She was Catholic. And she was Irish. So that's 4 strikes against her. He didn't like her, so he ordered her taken out. Okay. Problem is, she was preggers. Okay. So they let her carry the child to term, and she gave birth to a baby boy in prison. Then, as soon as that was done, they took her out, did the drop, let her dangle for about an hour, and then cut her down, buried her, and called it a day. So here's the thing. She appears there. Now, as my guide was telling the story, long before he ever got to her or described her, I looked over my shoulder. There was a young woman standing there. She was about 15 years old. Red hair. She was disheveled, pale skin, actually very pretty. Okay. But her head was cocked to one side like this. Okay. And I just twiddled my fingers at her. Okay. Because, you know, kind of obvious ghost. Okay. And this was her reply. And I went back to the story. Okay. So I feel kind of sad for her. Her son was taken away from her, and he didn't live very long. He didn't make it past, I think, 2-3 months. Got sick, whatever, needed mom's milk, who knows, but he didn't make it. So people that have seen her in the square note that she is poking around, trying to find something. I imagine she's looking for her son. She knows he's nearby, but doesn't know exactly. So I kind of want to help her out. Okay. There's another square there. It's where Nathaniel Green is buried. He is the founder of Savannah. He was also a general in the American Revolt. There in Georgia. Okay. Well, he had a thing. He hated the Spanish moss. Okay. Now, this is a well-documented legend there, and by the way, in his square, beginning in 1902, when they moved his bones in, the Spanish moss will not grow there at all. They've tried reseeding it. They have done numerous studies near as they can figure. See, Spanish moss is spread on the wind and gets pretty windy there. A lot of people have also said, oh, it's the salt water. Okay, fair. Why is it when the river backs up due to the storm surge and salt water gets deposited, the Spanish moss is fine? So I'm going to talk to the city council about this. I got some ideas. So we'll go ahead and see how that falls in. All right. So I am planning another trip out there. It's going to be in about a year. And by the way, a friend of mine has property down there. And she said, you know, if you need, just give me a call. I didn't know that when I booked my travel. Now I feel stupid. But, you know, there we are. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to give her a call next time. I'll probably set it up in a few months just because I've got other things I have to worry about. And I'm going to go down there and I'm going to be poking around. I'm going to cross some stuff over. I'm going to clean some stuff up. Oh, and by the way, there's another interesting haunting that's down there. See, when you come off of the main area of Old Town, there's a strip. That was the Market District. It's one street, and I actually had some excellent steamed mussels there, Cajun style. Mwah, beautiful stuff. So I got in, and my guide is talking about this hotel there. It's called the Marshall House. Okay. Now, that's been there since the antebellum era. Okay. Now, Sherman used that building as a hospital for his soldiers. There was one of his guys, he was an infantryman, probably about 18, 19 years old, maybe even younger. and he had his hands removed for severe injuries. Fortunately, he didn't make it out of surgery. He's still there. So my guide pointed up to the window as to where the room is, and I looked up there, and I saw a guy in Union blue look down at me. And he goes like this with his stub. Delightful. A little stinker, that one. And I'll tell you why. See, what he does is if you stay in that room, he will walk over to you and rub his stub on your cheek until you wake up and scream. He gets a huge kick out of it. Children. People, raise your children better. That's all I'm saying. I am fairly certain he knows very good and well he's dead, and he's having a blast. Living his best afterlife, if you will. Next floor down, there's a kid that hangs out under the bed. He's like 7. Got a yellow fever in there. And what he does is when you slide off of the bed and put your feet on the floor to go pee or whatever in the middle of the night, he will slide out, grab your ankles, and start chewing on them. Then when you scream, he giggles and slides back under the bed and disappears. You need to have a talk with this boy. That boy ain't right. But we'll get there. So, I will be going back, and I'm going to go back probably about this time of year, because there were enough people there that, there's stuff to do, but not enough to where I have to wade through throngs of humans. That annoys me. Also, hurricanes and whatnot. So, I'll book it later. Anyway, I'm going to be doing kind of a series, alternate history thing. I had a couple of ideas as to what if the South had been successful. I was watching some alternate history stuff, and I was going, let's talk about it. So, also check out Threads from the National Tapestry. They do a lot of Civil War stuff. If you're interested in that, they tell it as a story. Really cool stuff. So, I will be back later with that and other things. Reviews will continue, etc. It's going to take me a little while to write this thing and figure it out, but we'll get there, okay? I'm thinking of doing it in the style of kind of how I did my religion. We'll see. So, I will be back later. You take care. Bye-bye.